Joining me on stage, I have 5 esteemed guests who I'm going to try to introduce without butchering their names. Jean-François Bobier, partner and vice president from BCGX, who's going to hopefully appear on the stage any minute now. Stéphane Boujna, CEO and chairman of the management board for Euronext. Pierre Desjardins, CEO and co-founder of C12. Emmanuel Gobe, professor at Sorbonne University, and also has many other titles which you can read in the program. And Rachel Wilson, who is Managing Director of Wealth Management and Chief Data Officer for Morgan Stanley. Thank you guys so much all for joining me. Now, we only appear to have 4 microphones. Have we got a 5th microphone, or will I stay standing here? Question for the tech people. Yep, someone over there has a 5th microphone, so I will come and join you guys in a second once we get that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to join you guys now, and this will make its way to us. Okay, so Pierre, did I actually introduce you, or did I manage to miss your name? Oh yes, I did, sorry. So C12, you are the quantum native on the panel. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what C12 does and the potential applications for it in finance, both in terms of where the technology is now, because as we just heard, this isn't all sci-fi like I thought it was before this event, and also what it could do maybe in 10 years' time. But you only have 3 minutes for all of that. Welcome, Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. So Alessandro introduced very well this technology, the massive impact of this new technology. It's a new compute infrastructure. So you will have like the same impact as the introduction of microchip, of mobile, and of course of GPUs. And quantum computers, they are not here just to compute faster. They are here to solve problems that we don't know how to actually solve currently. And in the finance sector, I can think of like 3 big implication and application. The first one is about portfolio optimization, especially multi-constraint optimization. Everything that is related to combinatorial optimization, a quantum computer will be extremely good at. The second application is for like pricing derivative or option valuation. Basically everything that is related to stochastic modeling. And here we have proven advantage that quantum computer will have a quadratic speed up for Monte Carlo simulation. And last also application I would like to mention is about like market simulation and risk assessment. And on this, actually also what is very interesting is that using a quantum computer, you have access to a much more sophisticated distribution. So you can also like be much more accurate in the way you handle risk. So what are the current state of our industry about building those incredible machines? Currently we are like machine with a few hundreds of qubits, able to do only a few hundreds of operations. So it's extremely small and nothing that can really disrupt currently your industry of direct application in finance. But there's roadmaps are really accelerating, and you can see and a lot of breakthroughs are expected both in hardware and also in software and algorithm. So at C12, we are working very hard. It's very hard to make breakthrough in quantum. So we are working very hard to make breakthrough in terms of hardware. So we are developing a spin qubit quantum computer, and we are working on 2 innovations. One is to have like extremely high quality qubits, and the second one is to have like novel interconnects between the qubits. Our conviction is that the combination of the 2, they can create a quantum computer at scale without the massive overhead of all our competitors. So it's really to have this technology available for like a broad usage. And to finish, maybe it's about like also the potential threat of quantum computer, and maybe to give also a bit of timeline here. So about like breaking public key encryption. So breaking, for example, RSA 2040, we will need 6,000 logical qubits and something like 10 to the power 9 operations, so like billions of operations. So this will need much more powerful quantum computers that we have today. Today we have like mostly prototypes. And we expect this to be available in like less than a decade.
Okay.
Less than a decade.
So can I ask you two somewhat basic questions? The first one, what size is a quantum computer? Are they massive?
I mean, it really depends on the technology. But some of the technologies, the way they scale right now, they will be the size of a particle accelerator. So you might have like one or two in the world.
Not all of us know what size a particle accelerator is, Pierre.
It's very, very big. But
Like
so, for example, at C12, what we are building is a machine that could fit like racks into a data center. So it's like completely different in terms of size and complexity.
Okay, and if you had to explain a qubit to your grandmother, since we're on maternal metaphors here, how would you explain a qubit to your grandmother?
I hope I could avoid this question. I think that, what the image I like is how a quantum computer can exist a labyrinthus. So if you are a classical computer and you have to exit a labyrinthus, you have to go through all the different paths. You check one, it's a dead end. You have to go back and you go for the next one sequentially. When you are a quantum computer and you can encode your data correctly on your quantum computer, for example, you directly input all the different paths, then you can very rapidly change knobs of your quantum computer, and that will give a zero probability to all the paths except the one that is the exit.
Okay, that was very clear.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. And just to clarify, I am not Pierre's grandmother either. Okay, Stefan, coming to you next. I know at your next you see a lot of opportunities from quantum. What does that look like? And are you going to still be CEO by the time we see benefits?
Well, that depends on my supervisory board. Jokes apart, I just want to react to one comment that was made before. AI is not going to change every process. AI is going to impact every derivative process, but it's not going to impact the formation of events that do not exist in a digital form somewhere. AI is helping to approximate, to understand the likelihood, to go to statistically get to as close as possible to what this event could be, but cannot replace the formation of primary events or not derivative events. And I just want to take one example of something which is material in the finance sector, and that is not technically captured by AI today and not in the foreseeable future. That's the moment where price is formed. As of today, the consensus among all market participants is that when you put a number in red or in green on the screen, this is what we do for part of our business, and the rest of the world calls it for that particular asset price and takes millions of decisions depending on the substance of this number in red or in green. The assumption behind that is that this number is the output of the confrontation of bid and ask for selling and buying that particular asset at this particular time. This is not going to be replaced by AI. What is being replaced by AI is the drivers of the decisions of all the surrounding environment to bid and to ask, to analyze, to comment, to draw conclusion, to analyze pattern. But and this comment is valid both for the AI discussion and the quantum discussion. To simplify things, and I'm not an engineer by background, so the difference between algo trading today and AI use in trading and quantum-enabled or quantum-empowered AI in the future is, to be simplistic, the difference between reasoning and intuition. Reasoning is something where you can decompose and track every single step of your analysis and decision, and it's relatively predictable. Intuition is not the absence of reasoning. It's reasoning in a rush without you being able to decompose every single step of yours. But you mobilize in your brains when you have a strong intuition everything you've seen, learned, read, experienced, felt in all your life, and you are absolutely sure that it's the right thing to do, but you cannot decompose the whole thing. Massification of reasoning is intuition. Massification of algo trading is AI. But fundamentally, at one point of time, the output of your algo trading or your AI-enabled decision is to bid or to ask for an asset, and the output is whatever it is. Just like in the legal profession, when I was young and slim, I was a lawyer, the legal profession has changed massively. But there is one thing that AI cannot define, is whether or not the former president of the French Republic was going to be sentenced to a jail sentence or not. That could not be approximated by AI, because at the end of the process, there are a few moments in society, in human civilization, that are producing events, things that cannot be captured. Now, until we get in finance into a singularity moment, as the AI guys call it, where society decides that bid and ask is not the right way of forming a price. There should be a sort of super meta vertical computer that will decide what is the value of things. And we will just ask a question to ChatGPT global price information tariff. And someone will decide that it will always produce better valuation than bid and ask, which is the way prices are formed for 5,000 years since the first farming or agricultural trade fair were invented. Until that moment, event has a specific value.
Okay,
that was the first point of my introduction.
Yes. Now, if we could maybe, that was very interesting, if we could maybe come back to the quantum computing question, because I have been told this panel's on quantum computing. Do you see much potential for quantum computing to help Euronext, and how much
yes,
are you thinking
but
about it?
You have to understand
Within
one fundamental thing. Maybe I'm useless in this panel because I'm not in the business of lecturing people about change of paradigm, I have a vision, blah, blah, blah. I am in a business, people, you ask me whether I will be a CEO, people keep me for the moment because I'm allocating capital. The core of my business is to decide where do I put resources. I'm in the business of making money, of generating free cash flow. I'm not in the business of having visions. You remember that say of Helmut Schmidt when he had a debate with Willy Brandt, and Willy Brandt told him, "You don't have a vision." And Helmut Schmidt answered, "If I had a vision, I would visit an eye doctor." So I'm not in the business of having a vision. I'm in the business of allocating capital to projects that have a return on capital employed above the WACC of the company between year 3 and 5, period. Therefore, my problem vis-à-vis all these things is to navigate between, on the one hand, I have no mandate to put money on buzzwords, and on the other hand, I need to avoid the Kodak moment where we die healthy, like a sort of perfect Swiss village with geranium flowers. And so we need to embrace innovation, but on the other hand, we cannot burn all the resources we have on projects that do not have a return on capital. In particular, what we need to do before we allocate capital is what is the full cost of operation? How can we ring fence the productivity gains? I'm always using, sorry for repeating what I've said at the OECD panel, because I've seen many other people who do panel tourism or conference tourism. It's super important. For AI, if you combine working from home, AI, Friday afternoon, what do you have? You have people in 20 minutes or half an hour who do from home what they could do in 3 hours. What do they do the rest of the afternoon? A pleasant nap with their friends. So what do they do? How can we capture the productivity gain? How can we ring fence the productivity? What is the total cost of operation? Is the technology mature enough to produce standards? Are the supervisors okay with it or not? If it is not, if we cannot tick all those boxes, I'm just burning cash to explore things, and therefore I'm destroying value. So we are investing money in these things because there is a big difference between being late or being right. There are some technologies where you are better off being late rather than wrong at the beginning. There are some technologies where you are better off being wrong rather than being late.
Okay, I think I can see your perspective on that, and I think you're probably not going to be in the camp of being the first one out of the blocks, just hoping that it's going to pay off. But we can explore that more later.
No. I think your interpretation is too short. That's not what I'm saying. No.
It's just we are bound by the
I'm
clock.
sorry. I have shareholders, and I don't want them to feel that I am, as I said at the OECD, nostalgic of the splendor of the sailing navy, elegance of horse carriage, sweetness of oil lamp, and greatness of the empire, as General de Gaulle used to say. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we have to be calm and meticulous about capital allocation, and we need to decide use case by use case what is the level of risk we are willing to take.
Okay.
If I had followed all the buzzwords since I've joined this industry, I would have invested a lot in metaverse, a lot in SPACs, a lot in DLT 10 years ago when 15 years after DLT was invented, the only people who make a lot of money in DLT are the crypto asset guys. All the other ones are doing small money. So being specific, serious, but that's my perspective, because I'm not in science, in lecturing about the future will be different, etc. I'm in the business of generating free cash flow. Otherwise, we would not have transformed a company which was a 1.5 billion company to a company that is a 13 billion company. That's my job. So maybe I'm the boring guy on your panel.
I'm not sure I'd quite say that, but I'm going to bring in Emmanuel here because you have a very specific use case, I think, that you spend quite a bit of time on, and that is the use of quantum computing in stress testing and how quantum computing can enhance stress testing. Are you still keen to talk about that, given what we've just heard now? Are you brave?
Okay. So how much I have? 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
You have 2 or 3 minutes. I'll be flexible.
So I'm lucky enough to supervise a team of top guys in risk management on the academic side. I'm working with several banks. Some of these colleagues are here. So for me, quantum computing is really a game changer. It can be really helpful to dive into very hard problem for a risk assessment, typically. So there are very hard problems, we know. Typically on credit risk, we know that we have to handle thousands of obligors and to run Monte Carlo simulation to assess the risk of this credit portfolio. Okay, so it is very time consuming, so having a massive quantum computing can help a lot. And we know that we try to evaluate tail risk, so we need to sample a lot. And so I'm sure quantum computing help in this respect. I think there's a game changer also in I don't know if there's a word for this, but I would say quantum machine learning. This is also very used to address some problem of prediction of supervised learning. Okay, so there was a paper 2 weeks ago, typically about addressing the problem: is a neural network able to learn a function using a quantum computing? Okay, so we know that with a classical computer this is possible, but we have to face a big problem, which is the curse of dimensionality. So curse of dimensionality is something that when the number of variables entering in the problem becomes very high, okay, you can still approximate the output, but it's going to require more and more computation and more and more parameters, and at the end this is impossible to solve. And so the novelty in quantum computing, there's an academic paper for this, but this is now quantum computing can do it without the curse of dimensionality. So for Kurt, it will be a revolution if we can use it in machine learning. And of course, the machine learning is technology is very useful in stress testing. Stress testing is what? Is this exercise of risk where you try to design some scenarios in the future in 1 step, 2 steps, 1 step being 5 years, 10 years. And along these steps, you have to take decision about how to manage the banks, or this is like financial steering. Okay? And so there are some problems we cannot handle so far now. Typically about climate policy. You want to run climate models for several decades. And so you simply are not able to run this model because of the limited capacity of usual computer. So I'm quite confident that quantum computing can help to overcome this limitation.
And do you think it can help in the next 5 years, or is it more something we're going to be old by the time it comes in?
Next 5, I don't know, but maybe next 10 years or 15 years. Yes, but we have to get prepared for this next revolution.
Okay, 10 or 15 years, like a very long time away. But thank you so much for that. Jean-François, I'm going to bring you in now, and thank you, and Rachel, for being so patient. Sorry, we're getting around the panel. Jean-François, so I know BCG has done a lot of work on the field of quantum potential applications. How do you think about the balance of, we talk mostly about the opportunities here, but there are also risks, particularly we hinted at it earlier around cyber. So would you say that it has more opportunities than risks, or the opposite way around, in 3 minutes or less? Thank you.
All right. So I think we are in a similar moment as we had in Y2K. Some of us are old enough to remember Y2K. So if you remember that time, computers in the 80s and 90s, they were programmed with, 19 and then XX, And of course, in 2000, the computer would believe we were actually back into 1900, and a lot of programs were had the potential to fail, and catastrophic failures actually. And so the entire industry embarked in a program to solve that, to fix that Y2K problem. It was a business. I mean, it was a risk. It brought zero value to the people who did that transition, because the only thing was just to stay in business, right? And I think here with quantum we will have the same problem. So let me be more precise. So there are two types of two types of use cryptography. So one is called public key cryptography. So basically, I don't know you, you don't know me. I give you a number, which is my public key. And with that number, you can encrypt your message and send it back to me. And because I have a private key, I'm able to decode the message, right? And there's another technique called symmetric key, private key. That technique so far is not at risk. So for example, credit cards, right? Use private key, that's fine, right? But public key cryptography is used a lot, and you would be surprised. It's used in certificates. It's used in cryptocurrency. Some people talked about this. I don't know, but the public key of your wallet, it's actually a crypto public key. It's made out of the private key that you use to verify your transactions. And guess what? The algorithm that has been chosen by the creator of Bitcoin more than 10 years ago is also at risk, similarly as RSA. Actually, some people argue it's even easier to crack if they use elliptic signature. So anyway, that's not the concern. So now going back to quantum, if we look at the roadmap of the hardware manufacturers, namely IBM, which they stressed out everything they said they would do, they delivered. They have a roadmap running until 2033, and we have a view on what we will have in 2035. And it seems by 2035, we'll have hardware requirements to crack RSA 2048. Very, very likely, above 50%. So, which means that all the communication we are having, sending a public key and discussing together, will be at risk. So, that's a problem. Similar to Y2K, it brings zero value for people to make the migration, except to stay in business. But if
you could just hold the mic a little closer to your mouth, that might just help with hearing you. So there are big risks.
So we research that. So the good news is there are new protocols that have been developed for many years that are available. They are called PQC, which means post-quantum cryptography. They are available. They are already implemented. So if you have Chrome, for example, it's already implemented on Chrome on the client side. There are already websites, for example, google.com, that emits these certificates. So if you communicate with google.com and you turn off RSA, it actually works today, right? But of course, for banks, it's going to be a lot of work because you have thousands of applications. You don't know what type of crypto they use necessarily because it was never recorded. Yeah. You don't know where the certificates are, so it's going to be a long journey. And it's not the first time that in crypto, and I think it was mentioned by IBM, it's not the first time in crypto we had we had been in similar migration, 10 years is actually a short time to do such a migration. Think about also Y2K, it took almost 10 years to do. So people need to embark on that journey now. When I talk to customers, the difficulty is that to go to your boss and say, hey, give me money for a problem that will actually occur in 10 years where you will probably not be CEO, it will be somebody else. You know,
It's a challenging conversation.
yeah, it's a challenging conversation. So we just did the research that I'm going to publish. So we're going to help people. So we believe that the budget to do that transition for a typical company, and especially in a financial institution company, will be 2.5 to 5% of your IT budget. So if you spend, let's say, $1 billion in IT, you can calculate how much you're going to spend over 10 years to do that migration. Believe me or not, this is still the point where a lot of my clients are stuck right now. To get the budget, so they can embark on the transition. The algorithms, they have been defined. NIST, which stands for National Institute for Standard and Technology, which is the N stands for the US, but it applies to us, right? Whether we like it or not. They have already set the timeline. So 2030, RSA is deprecated. So we can still use it, but it's considered as deprecated. And after 2035, it's disallowed.
Okay.
Which means that if you connect to your bank, and the bank has not implemented PQC, you will not have a key, safe key on your browser. It will show it's broken. You will still be able to connect because you can say...
You just might lose all your money.
Yeah, you will say, okay, I'm taking the risk, okay, you know. But that's just you and your bank. But of course, you have to think about the value chain. So relationship between banks, relationship between banks and regulators. You have to think about in the private banking sector, you have even more complicated structures. So it's going to be a massive undertaking, and the journey needs to start now.
I guess, yeah, I can definitely see it's a complicated thing, and I appreciate the challenges you're having. Rachel, thank you so much for sitting patiently here for the last half hour. I'm sorry I'm only bringing you in now, but it's a good point to bring you in. You are someone who sits within a large bank. How hard is it to get people thinking about 2045 when it comes to an annual budget cycle? You got an annual budget. We still do quarterly earnings, although maybe not for long. It might be semi-annual, but it is still a much more short-term financial. The planning cycle is usually not 25 years, 20 years.
No, Laura, and thank you for having me, and totally agree with you. This has been, and I'll speak to you guys today the same way I speak to our board of directors on exactly this topic. What we tried to emphasize to them, and Jean-François, you nailed it, that you look at those NIST papers, they are not just a prescription for how to address this problem, they are a call to action. And so we have actually given our board the requirement, you must read these papers, and you've got to understand that the journey absolutely starts now. So when I think about the number you cited, Jean-François, it really resonates with me. So at Morgan Stanley, we spend about $6 billion a year on technology, and we've budgeted $200 million next year to start addressing this problem. And the biggest issue we've got is exactly the point that Jean-François made. We don't understand the scope and scale of our potential vulnerability. We don't have an inventory of all of the cryptography that we have employed over the last 40 years. We don't understand it at any level in our tech stack because no one ever wrote this down because we never actually thought, Pierre, that you would be successful. So now that you've done this, we are taking this very seriously, and I fully expect that the next 2 years will be solely dedicated to an inventory of the problem. Then we move forward with the prescription. But that 2.5% really rings true to me. And as regulators, that means you all need to start asking that question now. This is not a 5 years from now problem. And in fact, I love the analogy you made, Jean-François, about Y2K. That is how we've described this to our board. It's going to be that level of transition. But I would argue that the implications of getting this wrong are actually twice as bad as the implications of Y2K. So if we got Y2K wrong, global systems were going to fail. In this case, not only will they fail, but all of the data we care most about will be exposed. We will be vulnerable. So when I talk to our board about the end risks we're addressing here, certainly resilience is at the top of the list. We've got to remain in business when all of this hits its truly immersive moment. But at the same time, you know, as the person responsible for all of our customer data and our customer positions, the burden on us for what we must protect is through the roof. So when I talk about this, it's both in my resilience hat, my cybersecurity hat, and my data protection hat, because all of those things are at risk. The other point we've made to our board in our pitch for budget and for real engagement on this has been a point that Alessandro made, that even though we may be 10 years away from truly commoditized quantum computing, the risk exists today. So if you are a person like me, and hopefully you're not, who spends your weekends looking at satellite footage, check out the satellite footage of central mainland China. What you will see, what you will find are massive data centers that the Chinese have constructed where they are housing petabyte upon petabyte of encrypted traffic, data that they cannot read today, but that they fully expect to be able to read in the relatively near future. So thinking about this even through the context of today, that if we don't action this soonest, we're actually putting ourselves at risk in the near term, this was compelling to our board.
Wow, that is fascinating stuff. And I want to ask you about those board conversations. Did the board invite you in to talk about quantum because they were already thinking about it, or did you have to fight your way in to get time to talk about quantum?
They were very confused when I put this on the agenda. Like, there's a bunch of stuff they're used to hearing from me,
your boards, yes.
But they were very confused, which is why we assigned them so much required reading.
Because I want to ask that question more generally. So I'll come back to you from a BCG perspective, Jean-François. Do you think this is getting enough senior bandwidth? When you talk to industry, are you still mostly talking to people in data, people in risk, but not really C-suite people, or is it becoming a C-suite priority?
So I think the question is a little bit, the answer is a little bit in the question. So far, the C-suite takes longer time to notice. Again, it's understandable, it's in the long term. It's really weird to understand quantum. Thanks to Pierre now, I think a lot of people understand better. But it's weird to understand. It costs money. It's long term. So a lot of clients actually, they when I was doing this publication research, and so it's gonna come out very soon. They were begging me, please get it out soon so I can use this 2.5. Take it to my management and say, okay, this is what I need. BCG says. And end of discussion.
That's a compelling argument.
So it's difficult because again, because of the nature of the technology, which is difficult to understand, and the fact that it may or may not happen. At this point, it's actually irrelevant. I mean, maybe the technology will fail because it's still very hard. But it's irrelevant because the standards have been set. We need to meet them. And the migration needs to take place now. So regardless of the success of the technology, which we hope will happen.
So Stefan, I want to turn to you now because you are C-suite and you're sitting right next to Jean-François. Has anything you've heard from Rachel in particular made you reassess the cyber risk particularly and how much Euronext needs to invest in that?
I mean, what she said is very powerful. It's one of the few panel discussions where I changed my mind. No, I'm really serious.
That's a clap
with a few nuances, in no particular order. The first, I fully share what she said about the strategic implication of any technological massive move. I think we underestimate the risk and opportunities created by this moment of reset, reboot. Europe has